Yeah, it's a beautiful season for Nigeria, and even the elements of nature couldn't agree less with the early rains recorded in the LCT and some parts of the country. I'm Chimobi Walter Naji, and I welcome you to the weekly business magazine program on NTA News 24.
And I'm Comfort Amadu. Together with Chimobi, we'll take you through the next 25 minutes or thereabouts, showing you the beauty of Africa's economic giants.
Of course, Comfort. Now, this beauty is reflected in the just concluded elections, and that is our focus this week, Nigeria's economy going forward.
That's not all. We have the regulars export tips with our in-house expert, capital market review, and not forgetting our young entrepreneur. All these after this time back.
Do stay with us. Glad you're still there. Now let's get down to business. Nigeria's economy has continued on the path of growth with a GDP of $594.257 billion to lead the top 5 economies in Africa as of January 2019.
And as the country marches on to 20 years of democracy, Kule Adeyayi in this report tells us how Nigeria is triumphing over economic challenges.
The present administration came on board in 2015 and met miscellaneous economic challenges. The inability of previous governments to save gave a rise to a depleted foreign reserves and a weak excess crude account that combined with a drop in the global price of crude oil to stagger the economy, and it eventually nosedived in 2016.
We came to a meeting where one of the major advice that was given is that there is a need to save for a rainy day, and that we must continue to rebuild reserves. That means that that Nigeria's decision to build its reserve from as low as 23 billion in October 2016 to almost 48 billion today is a decision in the right direction. So, and we're going to continue to do so because it's important. If we had reserves when we were hit by the exogenous shock, we will not suffer the recession that we suffered. It would have been possible for us to defend our positions. And there is a very strong likelihood that there could also be reversals. The Minister of Finance talked about US Fed normalization. Interest rates will go up. When interest rates go up in this environment, what happens is that the emerging markets and the frontier markets will lose those monies that came in. So when there's a reversal, we need to be able to prepare ourselves that when this happens, that we should be able to withstand the shock.
The task of rebuilding began. The federal government took deliberate steps to reflate the economy that saw government spend its way out of recession and subsequently came up with a medium-term policy framework, the Economic Recovery Growth Plan, ARGP. The plan seeks to sustain growth momentum and build on diversification efforts.
The packages are massive. We're looking at it. So on a week by week, the targets are supposed to meet and so on. So we have the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan Implementation Unit, which was set up within this ministry, but they will report both to this ministry and to the presidency. The implementation unit is staffed at the very head by officials who are senior special assistants to the president, which goes to show how important this is to the president. And I have to say that the support of the president has been critical, key to the successes that we have achieved.
The Buhari administration also took initiatives to reduce the bottlenecks around the ease of doing business that saw Nigeria record significant strides in the World Bank's ranking.
I think we've made considerable progress. As I'm sure you know, we now have a Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council that is focused on just solving the problems that people face doing their businesses every day. and that our citizens face. And that council is what led to the improvement in ease of doing business rankings for Nigeria, which had been going down for 10 years. For 10 years, Nigeria was deteriorating. But what we now have is a situation where Nigeria is adjudged one of the top 10 reforming countries in the world, and people are beginning to notice. We have also established an industrial council, an industrial policy and competitiveness council that is working with the private sector to solve the problems that industrialists face. We're also implementing special economic zones to help people who manufacture and who produce so that the cost of production will come down.
All these steps were taken to improve local and foreign investments. In the past 3.5 years, the economic outlook has invariably been on the positive side. This has been adduced to other packages to boost the small and medium enterprises sectors like the MSMES Clinic. Nigeria First Professor of Capital Market Uche Uwaleke speaks from this perspective.
Massive investment in infrastructure. Okay, I am pleased that this government is turning attention to infrastructure. And of course, it's one of the cardinal programs we have in the EROGP, ensuring self-sufficiency, not only in food production in terms of agri, but also ensuring that we have adequate power. We have good roads and we have rail. So if we have infrastructure, you find out that the other sectors of the economy will be enabled. The new economy, the ICT, for example, the creative industry, arts and entertainment, okay, will all be enabled.
Now that the present administration is on course for another 4-year term, Nigerians have set some targets for government. The trajectory of Nigeria's economic transformation in the past 3.5 years has been unprecedented. Kunle Adeyeye for Business24.
And the resolve to further strengthen the economy is the focus of President Muhammadu Buhari as contained in his post-election speech. Joy Ozo tells us about the agenda of the Buhari-led administration for the next 4 years.
A major component of President Muhammadu Buhari's plan is to strengthen Nigeria's economic gains recorded in the last 4 years. This vision is set to commence in few months after emerging winner of the February 23 presidential election. Prior to the election, the National Bureau of Statistics released the Q4 Gross Domestic Product (GDP) report for 2018. The report showed a real GDP growth of 2.38% compared to 1.8% in Q3, representing the strongest growth since the economy slipped into recession in 2016. The report further highlighted salient points that placed the Nigerian economy on a firm footing, indicating the economy has recorded steady progress after a major recession in 2017. Economic analysts and observers said the report revealed the fact that the diversification drive of the Buhari administration is working. It is evident in growth recorded in the non-oil sector of the economy. The sector grew by 2.70%, up from 2.32% in Q3 of same year, representing the strongest growth in the sector since the fourth quarter of 2015.
The government needs to maintain status quo by ensuring that would continue this rise on our GDP at least before the end of the year. So if you ask me, it is very important on the basis of these statistics that the current administration stays and remains in power to ensure that this is sustained. I mean, it's a clear evidence of the fact that President Muhammadu Buhari has done well within the last 4 years.
For respondents, major drivers of the non-oil sector such as agriculture, mining and other services are showing good returns on investment. However, they were of the opinion that greater commitment in infrastructure, especially power, and full implementation of economic policies is needed to drive industrialization.
For instance, power is inadequate. If you are getting 8 hours of power supply in your house every day, you are lucky. But if you are a manufacturer and you are using power to produce, it means you are limited to those hours unless you produce your own power. Now, if you produce your own power, the cost of that power must go into your product, and that means your product becomes less competitive. Especially if you compare it with imported products that are made by countries where they have 24 hours power and they pay very little for power. And the same thing with transport. If your roads are bad, it means the cost of transporting your products to the market becomes much higher. I have said in my presentation that particularly we find that compared to other countries of the same level, like Malaysia and Indonesia and so on, our cost of transportation adds up to 30% or 35% cost to the product, the same product that we produce, which means we're not as competitive as we should be. So it is very important that, again, we work on improving the infrastructure so that businesses will grow. Because if businesses grow, government earns more revenue, and then they can invest more in infrastructure and other services.
The very civilized and functional countries have, as a matter of fact, keyed in. We had proposed coal-to-power projects in Nigeria, and those are the sort of renewable energy projects that can ease the power supply issues that we have in Nigeria. So the government needs to still look inwards to ensure that they encourage players in the renewable energy sector and find a way to support them, those with really good ideas, to ensure that there are more players.
They expressed optimism that the government, which has showed good commitment to economic growth and the fight against corruption, will consolidate on the gains so far recorded to ensure a vibrant economy and promote an all-inclusive growth for Nigerians. For Business24, I'm Joy Uzo.
And as a result of Nigeria's resolve to ensure transparency and accountability in governance, the country has ranked up among the countries applying the principles of Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative in the mining and extractive sector. What is the impact of this rating for the nation's extractive industry? Chimobi Walter and Naji takes us through this.
The African continent hosts about 30% of the world's total mineral reserve and even a higher share of deposits in gold and diamond. Despite these reserves, African production represents only about 8% of the global mineral production. Prior to Nigeria's independence in 1960, the mining sector contributed about 4 to 5% to the nation's GDP. At the time, Nigeria was among the top 10 producers of tin and iron ore. However, with the discovery of oil in the country, a lot of emphasis was laid on the oil and gas sector, which gave rise to corruption and proliferation of the mining and extractive sector. But with Nigeria applying the principles of the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative in the sector for the past 15 years, the effort is now paying off, for the country having been recognized and ranked top among other countries in transparency and good governance in the extractive industry. How will this impact the extractive industry in Nigeria? Mr. Waziri Adio is the Executive Secretary, Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NAITI.
It is not surprising to us, but at the same time, it's something that is welcome. It shows how we have been on course in implementing the ITI for the past 15 years. We started implementing it in 2004, and Nigeria is actually one of the leaders in the implementation of the ITI across the world. But this is a reinforcement, a confirmation of what we have always known. But at the same time, it's something that is worth celebrating. And it's not, it's the countries that are implementing the ITI. So this is a confirmation of the leadership position of Nigeria.
National President, Miners Association of Nigeria, Shehu Sani, noted that the implication of the satisfactory progress will be felt on all the value chain within the extractive sector, as it will boost investor confidence given the level of transparency and anti-corruption drive of the present administration.
What we need to expect is more and more rating, because, as I said during my opening remark, EITI rating is not static. It moves according to how you improve. So it is a challenge, a collective challenge for all of us at the board, the Native Secretariat, and all Nigerians to support Native at maintaining the status quo.
This rating gave rise to the report put together by NATI on improving transparency and governance for value optimization in Nigeria's mining sector. The report is expected to guide the governance structure of the sector.
Of recent, I was in Lagos and I was shocked to see that there was a queue of trucks carrying export products that lined all the way from Apapa Wharf to Obanikoro and sometimes even to Anthony Village. We're talking of a distance of close to 10 kilometers. So you can imagine how many trucks. What this does, apart from actually affecting the content of the containers, it also means that the truck drivers they have to get paid demurrage because it's not their fault that they are waiting outside. And what this means is that the exporter has to cough out about 400%, that is 4 times more the normal regular charges. And so today, it is cheaper to rent a truck from Abuja to Lagos than to take the same truck from Anthony Village in Lagos to Apapa Wharf. So that contributes a headache. We've been talking more than 2 decades now about the issue of power, and therefore every manufacturer exporter in Nigeria, I'm very, very sure that about 90% of them actually use, let's use the common terminology, they use NEPA as standby, because for them to be able to be sure that production is uninterrupted, they actually have to purchase and maintain their own generators. Some of them have had to set up their mini power plants. Of course, also, for those exportable goods that need a lot of water, it means that the manufacturer exporter also has to set up his own water corporation. Not to talk about the toll gates from farm gate to point of shipment, so many taxes and levies that need to be paid. We're going to take the issue of export financing on its own. That is another gargantuan task that is faced by Nigerian exporters. But for now, we're mentioning it because these are the various things that, the various items that contribute to making Nigeria's exports non-competitive.
Let's move on now to our Young Entrepreneur segment.
The world is constantly evolving with different innovations, creativity, and technologies. Likewise, youths are becoming more and more aware, focused, and determined to define their career path. It will interest you to know that many Nigerians no longer wait or go in search of government or white-collar jobs, as they are called. Many dig deep and build on their skills or whatever their hands find to do, ranging from fashion, technology, craft, and the most trending, photography. As they say, what a man can do, a woman can do better. Digging through a profession perceived to be predominated by men sure will not be easy. However, Deborah Nakbodia can best put her hands to use when it comes to peering through a small digital lens of a camera to capture memories and the beauty of nature. She took to photography more than 2 years ago. Her profound passion for photography has spurred her to develop her remarkable skills.
I was just watching videos just to update my knowledge. So when I came home, I continued my training. I told my mom was like, I should look for a job. So photography is it for me. I'm always up and doing, and I teach too. Yeah, during my free time. My mom made me do it anyway. So like, if I'm going to give you time, I'm going to give you money, you have to, because she's a teacher. It kind of gives me something from it. But I know I'll get there because right now I know this is the point of building your clientele basis. So let people get to know you.
One may ask how lucrative and profitable photography is that it has become appealing to so many youths today.
Yeah, some people go into it because of the profit, but now, the world is all about pictures, pictures, pictures. Even now you have kiddies' tablets where they can look at pictures, moving pictures of cartoons, animation and all that. So pictures right now sticks faster than, let's say it sticks like lightning speed more than what is written.
It was quite an exciting experience for me to also have a session of snapshots by a young female photographer. Different postures, diverse shots.
Well, I hope to go international. Yeah, getting equipment, having studios, let me not say a studio. I also like to have a school for photography because I know even as much as, yes, we have photographers in Nigeria, but don't really have it as a study.
The uniqueness of Deborah's photos are printable memories one can always look and reflect on with a smile.
Now let's take a review of the capital market. I think we've had a very rich package. Are there more stories, or we should just...
Unfortunately, Comfort, this is where we have to draw the curtain on this week's edition of the program Business24. But remember, the conversation continues on the social media platforms showing right there on your screen. Till next week, I'm Chimobi Walter Naji. Many thanks for your time.
And I'm Comfort Amodu. Thanks for watching. See you next time.